Shabbat Shalom. Tazria, Metzora, a double Torah portion about scaly skin diseases and plagues on one's home. Not the most uplifting of parshiot, or so we think. As we have already learned from Lauren this morning, there is a tremendous amount that we can learn from this morning's parsha, especially with regard to healing those in our community who are ill and ensuring that they don't get sick, if at all possible. I'd like to take this a step further and think about this week's parsha in the context of the set of modern Jewish holidays that we are in the midst of commemorating and celebrating. Last Monday night, our community gathered together to commemorate Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust, the deepest, darkest days of our people's recent history. And then this Monday and Tuesday, the Jewish world pauses to mark Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Memorial Day, and Yom HaAtzmaut, as we celebrate Israel's Day of Independence. As I think about these three holidays together, especially as we live freely in America as Jews, and as I plan to board a plane tonight to Israel, I want to think about these holidays. We often say that people are out of sight, out of mind. This is a fear in our parsha, that we put people with those who have a disease outside the camp. But it is to give them room to heal. But throughout the process of their healing, the priest goes out, checks them, and brings them back in to re-enter. No one is ever forgotten. So too with the holidays this week. Even though the days and the years pass and we live far away from Israel, we are deeply connected to those who have come before us, those who often had to remain outside the camp, those whose stories weren't told, and we need to welcome them back in. We need to remember the experiences today. And so this morning I'd like to think about each of these holidays, to pay tribute to those people whose lives were affected by the events that led to these modern Jewish holidays, and therefore deeply connected to us today. We begin with Yom HaShoah. The full name of this day, commemorating the victims of the Holocaust, is actually Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura, the day of the remembrance of the Holocaust and heroism. This was a complicated holiday for many years. For the question was, do we remember the victimhood? Do we remember the survivors? Do we remember those that resisted? At the beginning of Israel, the state of Israel, the people were nervous about remembering only the Holocaust, only the horror, lest that they seem weak as they were building the strength. So they only wanted to focus on those who resisted. But over the past 70 years, there has been a profound understanding of so many different people's stories and how all of them collectively had an impact on the memory of those dark years. There is also a question, how do we remember, how do we memorialize the Holocaust? Rabbi Elliot Malamed, a conservative rabbi, once said, there is no prescribed ritual for the observance of Yom HaShoah because it defies all ritualization. While this is theologically true, we know that there is a need for ritual. At our congregation, we certainly have a ritual. There are songs that we sing, there are candles that we light, there are survivors that we walk across this bima to light candles. In Israel, there were rabbis and scholars that created a Megillat HaShoah, a modern Megillah of the atrocities which parallel what we can read in the Book of Lamentations in both a third person and a first person recounting of the events. There is another ritualized moment in Israel that is quite profound. Since the early 1960s, the sound of a siren on Yom HaShoah stops traffic, and pedestrians throughout the state of Israel stand for 2 minutes of silent devotion. The siren blows at sundown and again at 11 a.m. All radio and television programs during this day are connected with the Jewish destiny in World War II, including personal interviews with survivors, and musical programs are adapted to the theme of Yom HaShoah. In North America, many Yom HaShoah programs feature a talk by a survivor, the recitation of songs, and viewings of Holocaust-themed films. Some communities choose to emphasize the depth of the loss experienced in the Holocaust by reading the names of the victims one after another. At the high school that I went to, people would spend the 24 hours going into the gym of our high school reciting name after name after name. Yom HaZikaron, Memorial Day, is a holiday that is extraordinarily well done in Israel. Unlike the Memorial Day celebrations in the United States, which kicks off the summer and the beginning of the beach season, Yom HaZikaron in Israel has a completely different feel. This day honors the fallen soldiers that immediately precedes Israel's Independence Day. The 4th of Iyar was declared by Israel's Knesset as a Memorial Day for those who lost their lives in the struggle that led to the establishment of the State of Israel. And we remember all military personnel who were killed in active duty in Israel's armed forces. Joining the day of Yom HaZikaron and then Yom HaAtzmaut together conveys a very simple message. Israelis owe the independence and the very existence of the Jewish state to the soldiers who sacrificed their lives for it. The most noticeable day of the feature, like Yom HaShoah, is also a sound of the siren that is heard throughout the country. There is the standstill of traffic and all activities. And just as on Yom HaShoah, that the TV and radio pays tribute to those who gave their lives during the Holocaust, and Yom HaZikaron, the broadcasts programs portraying the lives and heroic deeds of fallen soldiers. In honor and memory of this day, I'd like to share a poem by Natan Alterman, known for decades as one of Israel's poets. This is called The Silver Platter. And the land grows still, the red eye of the sky slowly dimming over smoking frontiers, as the nation arises, torn at heart, but breathing, to receive its miracle, the only miracle. As the ceremony draws near, it will rise, standing erect in the moonlight of terror and joy, when across from it will step out a youth and a lass and slowly march toward the nation. Dressed in battle gear, dirty, shoes heavy with grime, they ascend the path quietly to change garb, to wipe their brow. They have not yet found the time. Still bone weary from days and from nights in the field, full of endless fatigue and unrested, yet the dew of their youth is still seen on their head, thus standing at attention, giving no sign of life or death. Then a nation in tears and amazement will ask, "Who are you?" And they will answer quietly, "We are the silver platter on which the Jewish state was given." Thus they will say and fall back in shadows, and the rest will be told in the Chronicles of Israel. Just as we recall those who are outside the camp, it is our duty, our obligation to care for those members of the IDF who gave their blood, sweat, tears, and many times their lives to the Jewish state. The sacrifices they make is something that we must recall as we welcome in Israel's Day of Independence. For the Day of Independence is celebrated on the 5th of Iyar, which is the Hebrew date of the formal establishment of the state, when members of the provisional government read and signed a Declaration of Independence in Tel Aviv. The original date corresponded to May 14th, 1948. We learn that the official switch from Yom HaZikaron to Yom HaAtzmaut takes place a few minutes after sundown, when a ceremony on Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, where the flag is raised from half-staff to the top of the pole. The president of Israel delivers a speech of congratulations, and the soldiers representing the army and the navy and the air force parade with those flags. The celebration of these holidays as American Jews is crucial as we connect to the land and state of Israel. As it says in Hatikva, with eyes turned towards east, looking towards Zion, we know that there are ways of learning about and supporting Israel. I once heard member of Knesset Tzipi Livni speak. She spoke passionately about our shared future that is tied together. She reminded us as Jews that together we crossed the sea, together we came to Sinai, together we prayed to Jerusalem, together we created the Zionist dream, together we died in the Shoah, together we fight for legitimacy, and together we hope for peace. And so for Livni, in thinking about this Zionist dream, Israel can't succeed if it's only about creating a halachic state or about a Jewish majority. Rather, it needs to be a national society connected to a shared history and religion, values and traditions connected deeply with Jews throughout the world. And that's where we come in. This month, and in months to come, we must further deepen our connections with the Jewish people in Israel, because all of us is responsible for the shared Jewish future. Just as Lauren shared, all of us are responsible for bringing those in from outside of our camp. So in thinking about this, I have to ask, what binds us together? What are we seeking? We are seeking memory. We are seeking community. And we are seeking a future. And I also believe we are seeking peace. Just as those who were traveling in the desert for 40 years wanted a camp of wholeness and healing and wholeness and holiness, which is reflected in the word shalom, peace, and shalem, completion, so too today we seek peace. We recall those who haven't yet seen peace. We recall those who we don't know, but we welcome them back in. We tell their stories and we dream together. And so I'll conclude with acknowledging the celebration of a beautiful 13-year-old girl, Lauren, as I read a poem by a 13-year-old from Jerusalem, Shlomit Grossberg. This poem is entitled Prayer. What shall I ask you for, God? I have everything. There is nothing I lack. I ask only for one thing, and not for myself alone. It's for many mothers and children and fathers, not just in this land, but in the lands hostile to each other. I'd like to ask for peace. Yes, it's peace I want. And you won't deny the single wish of a girl. You created the land of peace, where stands the city of peace, where stood the temple of peace, but where there is still no peace. What shall I ask for you, God? I have everything. Peace is what I ask for, only peace. Shabbat Shalom.